Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make your own devil horns that are perfect for Halloween. Now we're going to be making them with wire and attaching them onto a headband so they're really comfortable to wear as well. And you can really customize them to however you want them to be. Now I would love to know if you celebrate Halloween, and if you do you dress up? Because I know it's pretty big in America, but I don't think it's that big in the rest of the world yet. But I definitely think it can be a lot of fun. But otherwise, if you want to learn how to make your own devil horns, then keep watching. So these are all the materials that we'll need. First of all, I have two different gauges of regular round silver coated copper wire here. The first one is a 1mm. This is going to be the base wire and add the strength to the piece. And then I have a 0.4mm wire, which is going to be the weaving wire and also the wire we're using to attach the horns to the headband. And then of course we need that blank metal headband as well. Now this specific one that I'm using is 4mm in the width, but it's not too crucial. You can really use whichever one you prefer. And then the beads here are optional if you want to use them or not. They're 4mm rounds, and these specific ones are faceted black agate gemstone beads. Now I'm going to have the material list and links in the description box down below so you can check that out, but otherwise let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. Now we first need to cut two lengths of our 1mm wire here, and these are about 60 centimeters, so these are what we're going to use to make the horns with. Now as for the 0.4mm wire here, what I'm going to be doing is leaving it on the reel while we're weaving. It's just easier and then we don't have to worry about how much we need to cut off just yet. So then the very first thing that I did was grab a piece of paper and a pencil and then made a little sketch of what I wanted to make here. So I'm basically going to use this as a template. So firstly, I took the headband and put it on the paper, and then I just traced around it there just to get the shape in place, and then I went from there and actually drew the horns. So this is then the shape that I ended up with. Of course you can make yours however you want to, and also you can make them what size you want to. Now these are about 4.5 centimeters from base to the tip there, so it's a decent size, but of course you can make them larger or smaller, that's completely up to you. Just bear in mind though that might affect how much wire you're going to need to use. Now we don't really need to draw both of them because you can just use one of them to make both the horns to trace after, but I just like doing it just to make sure I like how it's going to look. But once you're then happy with your horns, I'm going to put my paper just out of the way for now. And then I'm going to grab one of my lengths of wire here, and I've also got my chain nose pliers because what we need to do is put a bend right in the middle of it so you can measure where that midpoint is. Put your pliers there, and then I just push the one side back over the top of the pliers all the way down towards the other end there. So we have this little bend, and then what I also do is we just want to push this close, so kind of if you were doing a prong, just tighten that bend up, so something like that, and then we have a bend right there on the midpoint. And then what I just want to do with the bend here is open up the wires a little bit. So I just basically take the two lengths and just gently pull them apart, but you want to make sure the bend stays sideways like that. But otherwise just open them up a little bit. Just for now, because then what we need to do is start using these ends to shape the horn. Now what I also find can really help with that is grabbing your chain nose pliers and then put them right on the ends or right on that bend as far as you can get them basically, because that keeps it flat, and then you can just open them up more and also start gently shaping them. So we want them both to come kind of towards the same direction, but obviously this is going to be the point of the horn, and start to add in some curves to generally go in the direction that the shape of the horn is going to go in. But then once you have this ready, we can then obviously actually start to shape it using the template that we made. So I can bring that back in, and then I just use that. So I put the point where that bend is on the wire at the point on my template, and then you kind of just use that to shape your wire, and obviously it's going to be soft curves, so try and keep it there, and then you just want to start bringing your wire around. In this case just working on that side, so making the initial curve until you feel like that fits, and then we can start to bring it the other way. Just gently move the wires so we get nice soft curves in there. And we can keep adjusting until we're 100% happy with it. Now the other side, just do the same thing. Make your first curve in that direction. And then you can keep checking that you got the point in the right place, because obviously it can move around on the paper here. And then I like to grab further down the wire, so I'm holding it further down here. And also put my finger on where I'm happy with the first curve, and then I bring it in the opposite direction. And that helps give that soft curve. And you can just help guide it in place until you have the shape of your template, more or less. So that is basically the first shape for one of the horns. Now what I then personally recommend that you do is make the other shape as well straight away. So grab the other wire and again put your pliers in the middle of it, so we can then bend the one side down over the pliers towards the other side and get that bend in the middle, and make sure to tighten that up just like on the other one. Also helps sharpen up the point of the horn nicely. And then what you want to do here to make sure we get them opposite each other is, you can just reference the other one, it's basically when you pull them apart from each other. So obviously again you can place your pliers on the tip there. You want to pull them apart in the opposite direction. So that means the first one here I pulled apart with the top one going towards the right and the bottom one towards the left. So here I want to do it opposite, just so we get them mirrored from each other. But otherwise you then just bring in your template again, and you can just trace that on the same horn as well, just to get them as even as possible. And then when you have that, we have the two basic shapes in place, and we then need to start weaving. So now I have both of my shapes in place here, and you can see I have them as symmetrical as I can, but at the same time they're also opposite each other. So they're ready now. So what we need to do is fill them in with our weaving wire. So I have my length here that's still attached to the reel like I mentioned. So what we need to do first of all is attach it. So I'm just starting with one of the shapes that I have, and I'm starting where my wire is crossing over here, that's the bottom one, and I'm attaching my length of weaving wire to that. Just leave a little tail so we can hold on to it, we can get rid of that later on. Then I want to wrap this around this side here and push it right up to the point. Now it can be a little bit fiddly to hold on to right in the beginning because obviously we're just right at the point there, but just attach it first of all. Wrap it around a few times so the wraps here also come down further down where we start to have space between the two wires. What I also like to do is just push my wraps close together, and basically as far up as you can push them into that point. And then I'm wrapping it around, like I said, until I reach where I have enough space between the wires. So just a couple more, I think. Push them nice and close every single time you do a wrap. And then when you get to the point where you have space, that's when we want to start wrapping across so we fill in the shape. So that means I'm coming down between the two, and that's a figure of 8 weave. So instead of wrapping around this one again, I'm going to go underneath the other one and bring the wire up there, and then down between them again, and make sure to push that down as far as it'll go as well to get the wrap as tight as possible. And then another time around that top one, so twice around that there, and again down between. Now what we need to do here as well, because obviously it's a shape we have and it's curving in different directions, we need to take that into consideration. So we can't just wrap twice and twice and twice and twice, because now I need to come back over to this side, the first side again. So I did it twice on that top one, then come underneath the bottom one, wrap around that one. So you can see the wire starting to cross from one side to the other, and that's what fills in the shape. Now here, because this is the outer curve, you could say, so the wire is actually longer on this and the inner one there is shorter. What we need to do is make up for that. So instead of just wrapping twice and crossing back over, I'm going to wrap 3 times on this side. Make sure they're pushed nice and close again, and then I'm going to cross to the other side. And here I'm then going to wrap twice. So once, and then we have twice, because this is the inner curve. Make sure it's pushed nice and close together. And then I come back down to the bottom one, where because we're still on this curve going in that direction, it's still the outer one. I'm now going to wrap 3 times again. Twice and 3 times here. So that just creates more space with the wraps on this side, but it still keeps a consistent look. So for now, what I'm going to do is keep wrapping like this twice around that top wire, you could say, or the inner one, and 3 times around this one as we're moving towards where the curve goes in the other direction. So I now kept weaving here around that first curve, and you can see because I'm wrapping 3 times around the outer side and then twice around the inner side, it still follows the shape of the curve nicely and filling it in evenly as well. Now what I also just want to mention is, as you're wrapping, you might tend to pull a little bit at your wire, and what can happen is you pull the 2 base wires close together, so obviously you kind of mess up the shape a little bit. So therefore what I like to do is continuously have my sketch handy here, and as I'm wrapping, just every now and then bring it back down and compare it, and if they have moved a little bit closer together, you just want to open them back up again and basically put it into the original shape. So obviously just be mindful of that you don't just keep weaving and then they end up really close together. But otherwise, now what we need to do is continue and then go around the other curve that's going the opposite direction. So what that means is, also because we have some work done now, we can hold on to it much more easily. So now this was the outer one where we wrapped 3 times before. All we need to do is swap it around basically. So here, that was the outer one, that's now becoming the inner one because you can see it curves in the opposite direction. So that just means I'm wrapping it around twice on this side now. Once and twice. Before I then push that down, go to the other side, and then on this side, because that's now becoming the outer curve, so the longer wire, I'm going to wrap around 3 times on that side. So same basic technique, we're just kind of swapping it over because the curve changes direction. And then you just do that. Again, keep comparing it with your sketch, so you keep the shape, but also as you get further down, so you can see when to stop weaving, so we have the full shape of the horn filled in. So now that I've filled in the shape with my weaving, then what we need to do is cut off this length from the reel. So I have left a decent tail because I still need to use that to attach the horns as well to the headband. So I've left a tail of about 1 meter or so. And also because we now need to take the other shape and use the weaving wire from the reel to basically do the same thing. But obviously this is mirrored, so I'm just going to kind of flip it around, work in the opposite direction. Make sure you attach it to that one that's going across the top, and then otherwise you just want to attach it in the same way. So wrap it around this wire here a few times until you then make your way down to where we have space between the 2 wires to wrap across, and then you just want to start doing the figure of 8 weave, first of all going around this curve and then swapping over with doing 3 on the outside and then 2 on the inside, till we then get around the other curve and doing it opposite. And then obviously also compare this to your sketch and the other horn as well, making sure that they're as even as possible. So now I got both of my horns to this point here. What I'm going to do next is get rid of these little tails right at the tip, just so they're out of the way. So I just do them one at a time, and what I'm going to do is, it's coming out right at the tip there, so I'm just going to bring it around as if I'm doing another wrap in that same direction that we were doing the wraps in. And then what I'm going to do is take my flush cutters and cut off the excess, making sure I leave just a tiny little tail where it's wrapping around. So that's kind of just sticking out. Then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and gently squeeze that in, still continuing that direction of the wrap. So basically we end up ideally getting the very end of the wire just tucked in between 2 base wires right at the point there, because that then gets rid of it. So also it shouldn't catch on anything. So just do that same thing with the other one as well. When you then get rid of those wires at the tips, then I want to start dealing with the base wires here. So we need to, instead of having these come straight down from the bottom of the horn, we need them to basically go out to the sides. So I'm just doing one side, and what I like to do is the weave that I've done, I push that up and pull on that base wire, and then I put my chain nose pliers right at the tip of that weave making sure it's pushed all the way up. And then I just bend the base wire straight out to the side, like that. And that then holds that weave pushed up in place. And then I just do the same on the other side, push that up, and then bend the base wire just straight out to the side. So something a bit like that. And then now we have, when you've done this to both of the horns, we have them ready for the next step, which is then now to put some shape into the base wires there, because right now they're obviously just straight, and we need to create some shape both to be able to attach it securely to the headband, but also add a bit of decoration. So first off, I grab my chain nose pliers here because I just want to bend this a little bit more to the side. So grab right where that bend is, but now I'm holding it in this direction. And I just want to push it a little bit either towards the front or the back, it doesn't really matter. Just get a bit of an angle in there. Just something a bit like that. Then what I'm going to do now is take my 6-step bell making pliers here, and I'm going to be using the second smallest step on it for right now, because we need to basically add some shape into this, like I said, and also make it pretty organic. So I'm just using the pliers here to help getting my shapes in place. So I'm going to place that close to where I made the bend and the angle. Then I'm just going to work on one side at a time, doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to then take the long end here and bring it around. Now because we're close to the horn right now, it can be a little bit fiddly because it can be a bit in the way. So just maneuver your piece however you need to. And also move your pliers. So we just need to bring it back in front of the horn there. And then I'm getting towards making a full circle, but then what I'm going to do is bring my pliers all the way to grab onto the wire right at the tip, as much as you can. Grab onto that, and then I'm going to take my wire here and then bring it in across and basically make it into kind of a smaller loop on top of the initial larger circle, and then otherwise bring it a bit out towards the opposite direction to where the wire was coming before. So something a little bit like this, and you can make this however tight or open you want to. So, and you can then see here it's a little bit open, so we can always just squeeze that tighter by just putting a pair of chain nose or flat nose pliers over. And then if you need to adjust it, you can just go in and do that, tighten that up a little bit more if you need to. And then, like I said, we have the tail now coming out and towards the opposite side, and we basically just need to keep doing this, alternating from side to side. So I'm now going to go a little bit up the wire again, leaving just a little bit of space between them. Then otherwise do the same thing, but now mirrored. So I'm bringing it around the other direction, and again bring it all the way around and in front of the horn there, because what we're just doing is building a length of shapes here, and this is then what we're going to use mainly to attach to the headband, which is also why we're kind of making loops and shapes so we can catch onto that to secure it nicely. And again, I'm bringing it in over by bringing it all the way to the tip of my pliers, and then just tightening that loop up over it a little bit. And then again, flatten it down if you need to. And then basically I just keep building it like this for however long I need it to be. Just need to bring it a little bit more out to the side. And then again, I just go to the open length and then just build on the opposite side again. So it kind of keeps flopping back and forth. So what we need to do is build a length here. Now obviously it depends what side you started on. What personally I like to do is have the side where the wire overlaps, so you can see where we wrapped, be at the front, just because it makes it blend in a little bit more. We don't really have bare wire showing. So that means in my case here, this is going to be the middle of in between the horns, and this is going to be kind of on the side. So that means I need to get the length here to about the midpoint on the headband where the two horns, where they would meet up from the sides there, which would then look a little something like this. So I have my length, and if I then compare it to the headband, and obviously put that towards the side, and then this length is coming over towards the middle there, and towards about the midpoint of that headband. It doesn't have to be precise because we're still going to keep making more, but it's just to get that rough idea. Then we also need to do the same down on this end here. So that just means, again, you want to just bend the wire out to one of the sides a little bit, start making the exact same pattern there in the same way, and build a length. Now it's up to you how long you want this to come down the side. If you just want it to come down a little bit, you just want to do a short length, or if you want to do it longer down, then obviously that's completely up to you. So get it down to about the length that you want it. So now I've reached the length that I want on the side there. Then what we need to do is just come back up again. So you kind of want to make a little end here, and I'm just going to bring it around to come back towards the front of the horn. And then we want to continue kind of this organic pattern, but what I'm going to do is actually switch to my smallest step now. There's really no specific to this, you can kind of just do what you want. I'm just aiming at keeping this organic look to it and make it all kind of blend in nicely, and I'm basically going to be doing the same thing. So start making your little loop, and then I bring it over and kind of make the loop smaller to come further around to make the next loop, which I'm also then going to do in the opposite direction. So just kind of maneuver your wire however you need to. So get your pliers in there. As you can see, same principle, we're just making little loops, trying to get it all more or less blend in with each other. Now I also want to bring it over and do it in front of the horn there. So we're just going to have a little bit kind of just covering the very base of the horn, and again making it more look like one continuous piece. So I now made my way back across, and you can see this is what we've ended up with. So where I've ended my very final loop there, you can see I don't really have much wire left. What I'm actually going to do is go in and cut off the excess. So I'm just going to get my flush cutters, because we've ended on a little loop, and I'm going to cut off the excess, so the very end of the wire is going to end up still completing that loop. So like that, and then I'm going to just push that down so the end of the wire ends up basically butting up against the side of itself but completing the loop, and that way it still blends in nicely as well. And then you can see, I just bring in the hairband, place it roughly in the middle there. Obviously it's not attached yet, and it's still loose because we just kind of made continuous length of these loops, but this is more or less the effect that we're going to then somewhat get. So this one is now ready in this position. So what I'm going to do is just take the other horn, and you want to do the same thing, but obviously that's going to sit on the other side. So just make sure that it's the opposite side there, that's towards the middle, and the other one towards the outside. So now I've done both sides, so you can see they're gonna more or less create this kind of shape. So what we need to do now is actually attach these to the headband. So I'm just going to start with one, because obviously it's a bit much to be working with both as it's still loose. And then first of all, we have these weaving wires still attached that we left on the long length. Now this is still loose. What you can just do first is actually just connect them together wherever you have this weaving wire ended up. I'm just going to bring it around here. So you just basically wrap it a couple of times so it ends up sitting where you want it to. Makes it a little bit less loose to work with. Obviously it will get secured even more as well. But just a little something like that, it helps for now. And then we need to bring in the headband as well and actually attach them together. So I'll place my wire here with the horn on top of the headband, and I'm trying to keep it in the position where it's going to end up sitting. Don't worry too much about it because it's going to move around as we keep attaching it, but just try to keep it on there. So you can also just shape this wire a little bit to kind of follow the shape of the headband, but obviously it's going to get attached down to it anyway. So I'm going to take my weaving wire, and then we basically need to start wrapping this around and catching on some of these loops. So it's really whatever works best. Obviously it's quite organic, so it's a matter of catching the wire securely and attaching it to the headband. So I'm going to come around, and then I'm on the top here, so you just want to make sure you come through some of the loops or the organic wire work there, and then bring it all the way through. Now obviously once we have it attached a little bit, it does get easier to hold on to because it's not loose anymore. But then you want to then keep bringing it around the bottom of the headband to make sure we capture it. Now as you can see, this can easily still slide up and down, but just keep working on it. It's going to get gradually more and more fastened onto it. So basically, wherever you got to go through any loops or any other wire work there, just do that while catching that headband in place. So what I'm going to do is work my way down here, because I'm on that side first of all, but then work my way back up again, secure it nicely, and then we're just going to go across this front piece in front of the horn as well. So now I reach back up to the horn there. So this piece in front of it is still loose, a single piece, but this on the side is now much more attached, and also it's harder now, much harder to push up and down. You can still move it, which obviously we do need to be able to, so we can adjust them to make sure both of the horns are going to sit in the middle. But it does get fastened more and more. So just here to show you with the horn, in this case, the last wrap that I did, my wire is coming down and then up towards the back. So what I'm going to do is just bring it through to then also catch that wire that I have running in front of the horn. So what I'm doing is actually coming out underneath the horn. Can just kind of maneuver it through like that. And I also want to catch some of these wires and loops on the front to make sure that gets fastened down as well. So I'm just going to put the wire down through that first loop, nice and gentle. Bring it all the way through so it just catches there, and then bring it around again underneath. Now also make sure whenever you're wrapping around the headband that you do it nice and tight. That's what helps really fasten it securely. It's going to end up sitting nicely. And also what I like to do is on the back here, just use my fingers to press against whenever I'm wrapping them around to make it as flat as possible. But then come around again. And then we need to catch the next one. So you just go through wherever you feel like, and then catch your wires and your loops, make it gradually more and more secure until we're working our way to the other side. Now what I also like to do on the other side here is just go through and catch that final little loop where we finished off the wire and connect that to the horn as well. So I just bring my wire through, maneuver it through to the other side. And you don't necessarily have to catch the headband as well just with this. I'm just attaching them two together to make it secure. And then obviously I can do that just a couple of times before I just get my wire through again. Like that. Before I then just grab onto it with pliers. Can go back and also capture the headband just like I did before. So just to help secure the pieces nicely together so we don't have any single little things that maybe are sticking out a little bit or could catch on anything. And then otherwise you just want to continue here capturing most of these loops as well. So this piece is going to more or less be fastened. So once I reach towards the middle there with this weaving wire and that side is more or less attached, then we can bring in the other one, the other horn there. It's going to sit on the other side and basically do the same thing. So anything now that you just need to move out of the way, you can just gently do that. Kind of move that and the weaving wire as well, and then you just want to place this where that's going to sit, and then take the weaving wire that we left attached to that one, and then basically go through and do the exact same that I just showed you. So obviously we end up with that one sitting on the other side. So now I attached that side as well, and you can see we're starting to really get the feel of what it's going to look like. And we still have the top there a little bit loose on the ends, but also we have these lengths left. And I still have weaving wire as well because we're not quite done yet. Because what I want to do now is use some more of these base wires, because I want to just make a bit more pattern to fill in the top a bit more. So as you can see right now, I have them kind of overlapping right there, and they can fit nicely together. And I also want to make sure so it looks like it's just one piece. That's why I'm going to keep using these. So we're going to do that by still doing more or less the same technique, but obviously it's already attached, so it can be a little bit more fiddly. So again, I take my 6-step bell making pliers, like I was using before, to make all these loops. And then you just want to start with one of them, and then basically go in and continue the pattern more or less by using the long end, open end there of the wire, and start to make your loops and circles again. Just however you feel it fits in, and also hold it however you find comfortable and that works for you. And then basically continue the pattern. You can see that's going to just lay next to it there, and it's going to look like it's more or less just one piece. So keep doing that all the way until the end, and the same with that other side until we reach the sides on the inside here of those horns. So it looks, because we already have them double on the sides there where we came back up, so we just need to do that on the top here as well. So once I shape both of them there, then they're going to fit in perfect, you can see, with the shape. And the end, I just finished off the wire in the same way that I did previously, and I showed you there. Just made a loop and then cut off the excess, and then make sure to flatten that down. And then also that makes it blend in nicely. And then obviously them two ends, they're still loose, so you just want to pick back up just one of the weaving wires at a time, and basically continue all the way across where that starts from, and then across there to fasten that, and the same with the other one. So it's completely fully fastened, and it looks like it's one full piece. So now I've kept attaching those ends in place as well, and now this is the point where if you want to add beads to this, I would suggest doing that now. So you can use what you have left of these 0.4mm lengths, and you would just add just a bead at a time, get to where you want to place a bead, add a bead onto it, and then you would also more or less just wrap them around in the same way that we have been doing, but would then just be adding beads in along the way. And then again, keep wrapping it through wherever you need to secure it, and then get to the next point where you want to add a bead in. Just like that. For this one here, I'm not going to do it because I quite like how the silver looks by itself, but that's how you would go through and add your beads as well. And otherwise, once you've added beads, if you're going to do that, you would then just get to where you finish, and then we just need to finish off the ends of the weaving wires as well. Now to do that, just use one length at a time that we need to finish off, and wherever you've ended up, what I like to try and do is get to a wire that's not quite on the outside but more in towards the middle of the base wires, and then I would go through, because what we need to do is make sure we wrap around a single base wire before we can cut off the excess of the weaving wire. That's the way it's most secure. So just go around like this. So we're basically just wrapping around one base wire wherever you ended up by itself, and pull it through, making sure we still avoid kinks here. Pull it nice and tight, and we're going to do it a few times just to make sure that the wire is going to stay exactly like this and be secure as well. And then you can go in and just cut off the excess of it, making sure to leave a little tail, because we don't want it kind of sticking out and away from the piece, because obviously it might clash with hair or catch on something. So I had that little end, take my chain nose and I push it again, continue the wrap, and just make sure to tuck it away the best you can. If you can, get it in underneath the wire, so between the wire and the headband, that would really tuck it away, so that's ideal really. And then you get rid of that. Make sure you can't feel it with your finger. And then you just want to do the same with the other one. And then once you've done that, you've finished your hairband. And they're ready to wear. So you have your cute little devil horns here that you can wear for either Halloween or any other fancy dress that you want. And you can really make it personal by making different shapes of horns, and also if you want to add some different beads. This tutorial was really just to show you the basics of how you can do it. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now I do have a playlist of Halloween tutorials that I've done previously. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box down below. But otherwise, I hope you have a great Halloween whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.